Make your life a masterpiece. Imagine no limitations on what you can be, have, or do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Study IS. My name is Aditi Sharma, and I am your faculty for Environment and Ecology for UPSC CSE Prelims and Mains Examination. So, today is our lecture number 2, and I will be explaining you ecosystem and components of ecosystem, energy, and matter in ecosystem. So, guys, let's get into the lecture. Let's get started with ecosystem. Now, the term ecosystem was coined by A.G. Tansley in 1935, and ecosystem is a functional unit of nature encompassing complex interaction between its biotic and abiotic components. So now, an ecosystem is defined as a structural and functional unit of biosphere consisting of community of living beings and the physical environment. So both interacting and exchanging materials between them. So it includes plants, trees, animals, fish, birds, microorganisms, water, soil, and people. So ecosystem vary greatly in size and elements, but each is a functioning unit of nature. So everything that lives in an ecosystem is dependent on the other species and elements that are also part of that ecological community. So, if one part of an ecosystem is damaged or disappears, it has an impact on everything else. So, when an ecosystem is healthy, it means that all elements live in balance and are capable of reproducing themselves. So, ecosystem can be small as a single tree or large as an entire forest. Now, biome. What is a biome? Now, biome is the terrestrial part of biosphere, and it is divisible into enormous regions called biomes, like you can see over here: tundra, boreal forest, temperate forest, tropical, grassland. So, which are categorized by climate, vegetation, animal life, and general soil type. So, the climate determines the boundaries of a biome and abundance of plants, animals found in each of them. So, the most important climatic factors are temperature and precipitation. Now, see here, an ecosystem can be visualized as a functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. In the ecosystem, biotic and abiotic components are linked together through nutrient cycle and energy flows. Now here you can see components of ecosystem which are biotic and abiotic, and it is written over here that in the ecosystem biotic and abiotic components are linked together through nutrient cycles and energy flow. Now let's see what are these abiotic and biotic components. So the ecosystem is broadly divided into two groups, which is abiotic and biotic. Now what is abiotic? Abiotic is the non-living one. Okay, so the abiotic components are non-living one. The first thing over here is the physical factors. Now what are the physical factor over here? The physical factor are sunlight, temperature, rainfall, humidity, and pressure. So they sustain and limit the growth of organism in an ecosystem. Now inorganic substances. Now inorganic substances over here are the carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, water, rock, soil, and other minerals. Organic compounds over here are carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and humic substances. So they are building blocks of living system and therefore make a link between the biotic and abiotic components. Now what are the biotic components? So they are the living ones. So now biotic components consist of producers. So what are producers? Producers are your green plants. Okay, so the green plants manufacture food for the entire ecosystem through the process of photosynthesis. Now, these green plants are also called autotrophs as they absorb water and nutrients from the soil and carbon dioxide from the air and capture solar energy for this process. Now, consumers. Now, what are these consumers? So, these consumers are the heterotrophs and they consume food synthesized by the autotrophs. Now, the food synthesized by these plants, the producers, are being consumed by the heterotrophs because they are the consumers. Okay, so the food preferences are based on, like, they can be grouped into three broad categories. So the first one is the herbivorous, the second one is the carnivorous, and the third one is the omnivorous. Now, who are the herbivorous one? So the herbivorous one, that are the ones who feed directly on the plants. Like you have seen cow, deer, and rabbit. They directly feed on the plants. Okay. Now, carnivorous. Now, who are the carnivores? The carnivores are the animals which eat other animals. So they are the lion, cat, dog, and etc. Now, omnivorous. These omnivorous are the multi-talented one. They are the organisms which feeding upon both plants and animals. So they are the human, pigs, and sparrow. Now, decomposers. Who are the decomposers over here? These decomposers, first of all, they also known as saprotrophs. Okay, and they are mostly bacteria and fungi that feed on dead, decomposed, and the dead organic matter of plants and animals by segregating enzymes outside the body on the decaying matter. So they play a very important role in recycling of nutrients. They are also called detrivorous and detritus feeders. So now, what is the function of this ecosystem? The first thing, everything that lives in an ecosystem is dependent on the other species and elements that are also part of that ecology community. So if one part of the ecosystem is damaged or disappears, it has an impact on everything else. So you can see that these all are linked with each another. They are interdependent, like dependent on each other, directly or indirectly. So what are the functions of ecosystem? So first thing, the energy flow through food chain, nutrient cycle like biogeochemical cycles, ecological succession or the ecosystem development, homeostasis or feedback control mechanism like ponds, lakes, meadows, marshlands, grasslands, deserts, and forest. They are the example of natural ecosystem. Many of you have seen an aquarium, a garden, or a lawn. Must be seen in your neighborhood, or you must be having that. Okay, so these are what? Man-made ecosystem. Now, see this. So now ecosystem is divided into two parts. One is natural and the other one is man-made one. Okay, so what is a natural ecosystem? So natural ecosystem is totally dependent on solar radiation. For an example, forest, grassland, oceans, lakes, rivers, and deserts. So they provide food, fuel, fodder, and medicines. Now, ecosystem depend on solar radiation and energy subsidized alternative sources such as your wind, rain, and tides. For an example, tropical rain forest, tidal estuaries, and coral reefs. Now, what are the man-made ones? So these man-made ones are dependent on solar energy. For an example, agricultural fields and aquaculture ponds. They are dependent on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, for an example, urban and industrial ecosystem. So now let's take an example of it. So here I have taken a pond ecosystem and I will be explaining you this. So pond is an example of a complete and closed and an independent ecosystem. So it is convenient to study its basic structure and functions. So now it works on solar energy and maintain its biotic community in equilibrium. So if you collect a glass full of pond water or a scoop full of pond bottom mud, so it consists of a mixture of plants, animals, inorganic and organic materials. So we will talk about Like, what are the components which are found in a pond ecosystem? So first thing first, we will start with abiotic components which are found here. The first thing, your light. Now, light, how? Solar radiation provides energy that controls the entire system. Second, penetration of light depends on the transparency of water, like amount of dissolved or suspended particles in water and the number of plankton. So on the basis of extent of penetration of light, a pond can be divided into eophotic, mesophotic and aphotic. Now what are the eophotic? The eophotic are the true light one which are getting plenty of light. Plenty of light is available to the plants and animals in the eophotic zone. Okay, and no light is available in the aphotic zone, which lies over here in the bottom one. They are not getting that much of light. Okay, so the inorganic substances. Now the inorganic substances are the water, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and a few other elements like sulfur depending on the location of the pond. So the inorganic substances like O2 and CO2 are in dissolved state in water. So all plants and animals dependent on water for their food and exchange of gases, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and other inorganic salts are held in reserve in bottom sediment and inside the living organism. So a very small fraction may be in the dissolved state. Now organic compounds over here. So the commonly found organic matter in the pond are the amino acids and humic acids and the breakdown products of dead animals and plants. So they are partially dissolved in water and partially suspended in water. Now let's talk about the biotic components over here. So now biotic components over here are the producers, or you can call them autotrophs. So they synthesize food for all heterotrophs of the pond. So now they can be categorized into two groups. One, the floating microorganisms or plants. Second, rooted plants. Now what are floating microorganisms? So they are also called phytoplankton. Now what are these phytoplanktons? So they are they are microscopic organism. Sometimes they are so abundant in pond that they make it look green in color. Okay, so example to it is Spirogyra, Ulothrix, etc. Now what are the rooted plants? So these are arranged in concentric zones from periphery to the deeper layer. Okay, so three distinct zones of aquatic plants can be seen with increasing depth of the water. Now consumers and heterotrophs. Now these are animals which feed directly or indirectly on autotrophs. The example to it is tadpole, snail and sunfish, etc. So the pond animals are also classified into following groups. The first is zooplankton. Zooplanktons are the floating animals like cyprus. Nectons. These nectons are the animals that can swim and navigate at will. So they are the fishes. Okay, because these organisms are capable of swimming against a current. Now benthic animals. Now what are these? Now benthic animals are the bottom dwellers who are like at the bottom of this pond. Okay, so they are like beetle, mites and etc. So decomposers over here. Now decomposers over here are like distributed throughout the entire in the whole pond, but in the sediment most abundant. Okay, they are bacteria and fungi, for example rhizopus, penicillium and etc., and they are found at the bottom of the pond. Now let's begin with the aquatic zones. Now what are these aquatic zones? So the aquatic system are not called biomes. However, they are divided into distinct life zones with regions of relatively distinct plant and animal life. So the major difference between the various aquatic zones are due to salinity, levels of dissolved nutrients, water, temperature, depth of sunlight penetration. So aquatic system aquatic ecosystem is divided into five parts. First is the freshwater ecosystem. Now, what is freshwater ecosystem? The freshwater ecosystem are classified as lotic, that is moving water, or lentic, that is still or stagnant water. Now, lotic water system includes freshwater streams, springs, rivulets, creeks, brooks, and rivers. Now, lentic water bodies include pools, ponds, some swamps, bogs, and lakes. So they vary considerably in physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. Now, second, marine ecosystem, like you can see over here in this picture. Now, this is known as marine ecosystem. So, nearly 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered by ocean with an average depth of 3,750 meters with salinity of 35 parts per thousand. Now, about 90% of which is sodium chloride. So, now, third point is estuaries. Here you can see this estuaries. Now, estuaries, they are coastal bays, that means river, moats, and tidal marshes form the estuaries. In estuaries, fresh water from rivers meet the ocean water, and the two are mixed by action of tides. So estuaries are highly productive as compared to the adjacent river or sea. Fourth is the coral reef, and five is the mangrove. Now let's see this diagram, and I'll be explaining few things from the diagram. Now first see this ocean acidification. Now what do you mean by ocean acidification? Now when the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide, then it changes their chemistry a little. It drives a carbon cycle which involves a series of fairly simple chemical equations, and it causes the pH of the sea to go down. Now that that means the sea becomes a little more acidic. Now if we were only producing a little bit of carbon, then the ocean might only become a little more acidic. That would be okay, but we are producing enormous amount of carbon, and the ocean is absorbing more carbon more quickly than it ever has ever in the past, and it is changing in terms of its pH very rapidly, and critters living in the water just can't adjust to that. Now second thing, seabirds. Now what are seabirds? Now if you remove the cockles from a marine food web, it would have dramatic effects on all the consumers, all of the animals that rely on the services. Now there are several places around the world where there have been huge die-offs of bivalves, mussels, clams, and so on, and this has had effect all the way up through the food web to the highest level. So the seabirds that feed on little cockles or little clams all the way up to sharks and large fish, when you disturb a food web at any place, but particularly near the bottom, this can have sort of reciprocating effects all the way up the food web. Third thing, the farmland runoff. Now what is this? It's to try and to promote intensive farming practices. We fertilize more than we require on the fields, and so there is some leftover nutrients that can then carry into water sources, so into streams, and eventually downstreams into estuaries. So what does it it promotes growth of plants, of the seaweeds and the algae, and so little bit of enhanced nutrients can be good, and we see improved growth of several organisms. But if you have too much of that, it can start causing a negative effect, and there are some threshold levels beyond which a certain estuary can't cope with that increased nutrient loading. Now estuaries are also important areas, not only from a human perspective, but they are also important nursery areas. So a lot of fishes, organisms will come and use estuaries when they are at young stages at their life cycle, and so they form an important nursery habitat. So there are also crucial filters for filtering contaminants from land before it goes out into the coastal zone. So they have an important biogeochemical role as well as a nursery habitat role. Now, you see dolphins. Now, dolphins are classified as mammals, and mammals are one class of vertebrates, which are a group of subphylum in the phylum Chordata. So, the role that dolphins play in the food web is that they are an apex predator. So, dolphin feeds on fish, and so they are ultimately supported by the cockles and all the primary producers. Here you can see this commercial fishing. Now, what is commercial fishing? When we use the marine environment for food. So, people go out fishing and they collect fish and shellfish and different organisms for food, and this has occurred on relatively small scales through history. But through the advent of commercial fishing, the amount of food being taken out of the ocean has risen, and increasingly it's been more fish being removed than the population can replace, and so there have been some example of large stocks of fish that have collapsed under too much of exploitation going nowadays. Now, fishes. So a fish, I guess a number of organism can be classified as either generalized feeders or specialized feeders, and by that we mean if it's a generalist generalized one, it often can eat fairly broad types of items and dietary items. So it will be generally eat cosmopolitan species, so it will be eating a bit of polychaetas or worms, a bit of bivalve, and maybe some smaller. Now, what are cockles? Now, cockles play a very important role in the marine food web because they clean the water and they make it so that phytoplankton don't bloom or become too abundant, and they keep the water from going eutrophic or full of phytoplankton. So what happens when the water becomes full of phytoplankton is they can suck up all the oxygen and you can actually get fish killed. So cockles sort of dampen or reduce the possibility that you can get these sorts of bad condition occurring. Now, what are these bryozoans? Now they look like a little trees or flowers or something, but when you actually look at the level of the individual, they do look like an animal. Okay, so they do look like a animal. So now they are little worm with a nose that has tentacles around the outside, and they sit inside their little box, and when they think it's a good idea, they open the door and poke the tentacles out and catch something. So they aren't particularly different from other animals, they are just really small, and the colonies they make by gluing together look a little like plants. You can see them over here. Okay, now bacteria. Now there's a lot that's living both out in the water but also in the sediments. Okay, here they are, bacterias. Okay, so first of all, you can't see them with the bare eyes, and what we realize is that these microorganisms are crucial component of our food web. So by that I mean that the bacteria and the small microscopic organisms that we can't see, and they are performing. Now, sea stars are the starfish that are predators, and they are probably the most important predator in the shallow ecosystem. So the depth where we would dive or swim, they eat basically anything that they can come across, and they have a major role in keeping the numbers of other species down, such as mussels. So starfish are now referred to as sea stars because the starfish is not a fish; it is an echinoderm. Now phytoplankton, like I told you in the earlier also, like what are these phytoplanktons? So these phytoplanktons are very important primary producers in the marine food web. They are microscopic single celled organisms that float freely in the oceans. So they rely on energy from the sun for photosynthesis and are therefore most commonly found less than 100 meters below the surface. So phytoplanktons are eaten by zooplankton. So these are diatoms under the microscope, and diatoms are one of the most common types of phytoplanktons. Now zooplankton. Now these zooplanktons are large diverse group of organisms that live in the water column. Unlike the most phytoplankton, they live at all depths from the surface to the bottom. They come in many different shapes and sizes, and as the primary herbivores in the marine food web, they provide an important link between the primary producers and the carnivores. Now the sun. Now primary producers convert the sun's energy into food through photosynthesis. Almost all the energy used by marine organisms to make food comes from the sun. Now what is a red cod? Here you can see this, it's a red cod. Now what is a red cod? Red cod are normally found at the depth of 100 to 300 meters and eat crabs, shrimps and small fish. So they normally reach about 40 to 70 centimeter in length and are imported in commercial species. So the catch is managed by the fishing quotas, but there is some concern that the fishing method used to catch red cod is putting endangered species such as the Hector's dolphin at risk. Now what is a seaweed? Here you can see seaweed. Now a seaweed is a type of a algae and is normally grouped by color, green, red or brown. Okay. So seaweed is a primary producer and an important source of nutrient and energy in the marine food web. So seaweed generally grows in the clusters called beds, and these provide an important source of shelter for many marine species including mussels. In the next class we're going to talk about terrestrial forest, and in the last class I gave you a question. So the answer to that question is D, and please please see this question also, and I want you people to answer in the comment box. And guys, if you want Unacademy's Plus subscription, please use code STUDYIS. And if you have any kind of query, you can join us on Telegram, Insta, Facebook, and you can even mail us. Thank you guys. We're gonna meet in the next class.